Hello, class, and welcome back. This is Dr. Edward Padama, and again, we are going to discuss another topic related to your subject purposive communication. Specifically, we are going to go through a specific type of composition writing, which is expository writing. So, the title of our presentation or our lesson for today will be expository writing to or towards research writing in purposive communication. So, again, this is expository writing, specifically moving towards research writing in purposive communication. So, this is about the transition from the general classifications of composition writing, which we will recap later on, and then from that we're going to pick one specific composition writing, and then again, as I've said earlier, we're going to transition from the four classifications of composition writing to expository writing to research writing. So let us start our discussion for today. Now, to recap or to review what we have already discussed previously in our lesson or in our reference videos, we discussed and presented the different types of composition writing. So, we have the following. You have descriptive, narrative, persuasive, and expository. Okay, so the different keywords, key terms in order to define and identify what these different types are already presented in the enumeration seen in your screen. So when we talk about descriptive writing, this usually utilizes or implements the use of the senses. So again, previously we have discussed examples of this descriptive writing. This is commonly used in blogging, wherein the author or the writer writes what he or she is reviewing. If this is a restaurant or a tourist spot, whatever the author or the writer sees, this is recorded in what we call through the use of descriptive writing. So these are usually tourist spot reviews, even food reviews. Again, all of these are classified under blogging. Okay, blogging is a term that originated from the terms weblog. So from the last letter of web, which is letter B as in boy, and log, L-O-G, which refers to recording, jotting down notes, taking information, and writing it down. So you combine these two terms and the definition of these two terms, and then you come up with the term blog. Or when you write something, it is called blogging, which is the opposite, or another genre of this is vlogging. So this will now fall under the video log. So when you record something, instead of write it down or jot it down, you are now under this classification, which is known as vlogging. Okay, so again, all of this that uses the senses in order to describe something will fall under descriptive writing. Okay, the next one is narrative. Narrative, from the root word to narrate, is to tell a story. So this story can either be fiction or non-fiction, fact or fiction. Okay, so these stories can be something that has been taken from the imagination of the author, like novels, short stories, essays, and so on and so forth. Okay, so this will fall under fiction. So specific examples of these stories are the popular stories like Harry Potter and other series. Okay, and then for non-fiction or for factual this narrative stories, examples of this would be biography, autobiography, and documentaries. Okay, so again, all of this will fall under narrative writing. The third one is persuasive writing. So based from the key terms in your screen, this attempts to influence the reader. So the example that we gave during our past lesson was a campaign speech presented by politicians during campaign in order to influence or persuade the listeners to vote for that particular politician. And then the fourth one, which is where we will be focusing, is expository writing. So expository writing is basically to inform or to explain. So in this case, we are going to use expository writing in research writing. So how would information and explanation would come in to research or research writing under expository? Okay, so this is what we are going to discuss today. But before we go to that particular part, again, let us review the different parts or the basic parts of composition writing. We have three based on our previous lesson. You have the introduction, body, and conclusion. But specifically for research writing, we would be using more specific parts of research writing. Again, this will be presented in our discussion today. Now, moving on, expository writing in a more specific and technical term is a genre or a classification, a type of writing that requires the student to investigate or conduct investigation. An idea, evaluate the evidence that has been investigated, and expound on the idea to explain, to justify what the student or the investigator, the researcher has found. Okay. Now, and set forth an argument concerning that idea in a clear and concise manner. The argument is the presentation of evidences, and then making a statement that based on the evidences, this is what they have concluded, they referring to the researchers, and this is the recommendations, or these are the recommendations that they are presenting. Okay. So again, that is a more technical definition of what expository writing is. Now, from this, we are now moving closer towards research writing. So what is research writing? Now, by definition, this is a technical type of writing, meaning you have to follow certain mechanics and format in research writing. Again, it is crucial that you read, understand, and follow these mechanics and format presented to you while writing your research. Okay? So anyway, all of these instructions will be presented here in our presentation and discussion for today. So by definition, research is technical and an intellectual investigation through the different stages of collection, processing, validating, presenting findings of a problem or issue, and eventually towards recommending of solutions. So if you're going to see, this is a stage, a set of processes that is sequentially organized in order to present or arrive at a conclusion, finding a conclusion and a recommendation. Okay? So, again, we are going to present this graphically later on. This refers to the research process. So, what is, again, the content of this research writing? So, we saw the terms technical. Again, it is technical because of the mechanics and format that you need to follow and implement in writing. It's an investigation. That's why the term research. To search is to look for or to investigate and validate what you are looking for and making sure that it is accurate. Okay? And then another term is collection or gathering of data. So after establishing the topic that you would like to use in your research, you will now have to identify the type of instrument that you will use in order to gather or collect your data. So you will not be able to analyze everything, anything for that matter, if your instrument is not properly aligned with the objective of your research. So you have to make sure that the data collection process is aligned with the objective of your research. The fourth one is processing. So processing includes analyzing of the data that you have gathered. So after gathering your data, you analyze that using statistical treatments. So these statistical treatments involve statistical formulas that are, some of them are fundamental and basic, some of them are will have to be advanced. This will depend on the type of research that you have proposed. And then validation is a process that you will be oriented later on, not particularly on this discussion, where validation should be done, how validation should be done, and the different types of validation. And then your research should also present the findings. So what did you discover in your research paper? And then after that, after presenting the findings, it should not stop there. You have to present uh, solutions or recommendations that will complement and address your findings. Okay, so that is how we uh, discreetly and specifically dissected the definition of research writing. Now, I mentioned earlier during the discussion of this definition that all of this belongs to what we call the research process. So the research process will be divided based from this presentation in three stages, which is the IPOB, the input, the process, and the output. Now, for the input, these are where you gather data, you prepare everything that you need for your research paper. So this is just a an overview of what you're supposed to do when you conduct your research. So for the input, you have identify the research problem and formulate a title. Okay, so make sure we have uh, criteria and characteristics in doing this discussed in a separate video. So we will just focus on the process in general. And then the second is identify literatures and studies that will support your research. Again, there is a reference video for this that will support and discuss to you how you can do this in both English and Taglish. Okay? And then the third is identify a theory that will support your research. So pardon the typographical error. And then preparing the instrument. So all of this belong to what we call the input of the research process. The next one is the actual process. Okay, so for the actual process, you have their actions that you need to do in order to analyze the data that you have gathered. So you have synthesizing, data gathering, organizing, and then analyzing. So under organizing data, you have tabulation and interpretation. So again, this already involves the action that you will do on the data that you have gathered for your instrument. So we are still going to discuss this more comprehensively in other video discussions or video instructions. The next stage of the process is the output, where you are going to present the findings, establish conclusions, and then uh, recommendations based on the findings of your study. So basically, this is how you do research in three stages. Okay, the next part would be parts of a research paper. Again, class, this is what we call a full research. So basically, in our class, especially under purposive communication, you are only going to do a proposed research. So proposed research refers to creating and writing chapters 1 to 3 instead of writing the full research, which is chapters 1 to 5. So I hope you were able to take this down. You are not going to write a full research in purposive communication. Instead, you are going to write a proposed research, which will cover chapters 1 to 3 only. Okay, so what are these parts of your research? Again, these are already technical and part of the format of research writing. So you have to take note of the following. The first one is the cover page. And then after that, you have chapter 1 with its corresponding contents under chapter 1. The title of chapter 1 is the problem and its backgrounds. And then under chapter 1, you have the following parts from significance of the study up to scope and limitation. Okay, again, we are going to specifically and discreetly discuss these contents part by part. Okay, and then this will also be sponsored again and supported again by reference videos that I have already created for you. And then the next parts, the next chapters are chapters 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so chapter 2 is what we call the RRLS, Review of Related Literature and Studies. Chapter 3 is the Research Design and Methodology. And then under chapter 3, you have the following parts. So again, if you are writing a proposed research title or a research proposal, you are only going to write chapter until chapter 3. So again, uh, I would like to make this announcement for purposive communication students. You are only going to write until chapter 3. So chapter 4 and chapter 5, chapter 4 is the presentation, analysis, interpretation of data, which you are already going to implement your instrument and gather data. And then chapter 5 is already presenting what you discovered, summary of findings, and then what conclusions have you made from the findings, and then eventually the recommendation. So this is what I was reminding you earlier, a research proposal, which is what you are doing, dear students, in purposive communication, will only require the students to write chapters 1 until chapter 3. Okay, the next, remember the cover page. So get ready after finalizing and after you have identified the research topic, the research problem, and an approved research title has already been given to you by your teacher, yours truly. You will now create the cover page. So you will have to go back to this video after your title has been approved, and then this is how you should write your cover page. So we have an example on the left side with the corresponding title. This is again a fictitious title, the perception of women on being vaccinated during pregnancy. So you have 4 parts as you can see, and then we are going to go through these parts one by one. So let's start with the general mechanics and the format of the cover page. So since we are talking about the cover page, this will only be composed of one page, but you will have to follow the mechanics that will be presented in creating this page. Follow it carefully to the letter. So example number 1, in using MS Word, try to set your document to try to set the paper to the letter size, which is 8.5 by 11. This is equivalent to a short bond paper. Okay, so you may not notice you're already typing and then eventually you're using a legal or long bond paper as we call it. You have to set it immediately to a letter size or 8.5 by 11. Okay, the second, the font or official font that we are going to use is Verdana. So everyone will have to standardize and follow all of these formats. That's why it is called a research format. This is part of the identity of our university. So the prescribed measurements, including the type of font, should be followed. So again, the font type that we are going to use is Verdana. The font size is 12, which is default and the standard. Line spacing from the cover page until the body and the last part of the research will be double spaced. Okay, margins. Again, this is also applicable to the body of the research, not only the cover page of the research. So you have the left side is the 1.5 and a half margin, and then the remaining top, bottom, and right side will be 1 inch. Okay. Again, you can set the margins in your MS Word software. The next part would be the research title. The research title is located on the upper part. So what you see in the example is again explained on the right side under the research title. So try to look at the example and then try to look at the instruction on the right side. So under the research title, you have the following instructions. Number one, the research title should be formed as an inverted pyramid. An inverted pyramid. Okay? So if you are using two lines, like the example that you have in your screen right now, make sure that the upper line, the first line on top, is longer than the second line. And then eventually, if you're using 3 to 4 lines, the lines at the bottom should be shorter than the line on top. Okay? So maximum of 4 lines at least for the research title. And then observe other details, how the research title was typed or encoded. Everything is in capital letters and in bold form. So when you talk about mechanics, these are the specifics that you need to be aware of and you need to implement. So again, the research title is typed or encoded in all capital letters and in bold form. And then eventually, everything in the cover page should be aligned at the center of the page. So that is how you're going to encode or type your research title. The next part is what we call the presentation. The presentation should follow the capitalization as presented in the form. So you look at the left side of your screen, and then the first letters of these words are capitalized. So you have to follow, including the article 2 or other articles that you will find in the cover page. So you just follow. If they are capitalized, then by all means, capitalize your cover page or the words that you are going to use in your cover page. So under the presentation, you have a research presented to the college of the department where your subject is under. So if your subject is purposive communication, this will be under arts and sciences. So you will be using the College of Arts and Sciences. And then the name of the school, Arellano University. So again, going back on the right side, replace the appropriate department or college where the subject is under. Okay? So I hope you were able to take that down. And then again, the last description, align at the center of the page. The next part will be the intent. The intent again should follow the capitalization as presented in the form on the left side of your screen. So the content of the intent are the following: impartial fulfillment of the requirements for the subject, title of subject, not code. Do not write the code. Do not write the title and the code, just the title of the subject. So in this case, if your subject is purposive communication, just write the whole title, purposive communication, and replace that under the ones in the open and close parentheses. So on the right side again, After following the rules in the capitalization as presented in the form, replace the appropriate title of the subject. Again, do not use or include the subject code. And the last one, which is again, place the whole part at the center of the page. The last part is what we call the author. The author includes the following. So I'll read from the description on the right side. Should follow the capitalization as presented in the form again. So first name, the first letter should be capitalized. MI is middle initial. Do not write the middle name. Just the middle initial or initial letter of your middle name. And then the last name, again, the first letter of the last name should be capitalized. And then the month and the year refers to the end of the term. Now, going back to the right side, replace the appropriate full name of the author as presented in the form as what I have discussed to you earlier on. Replace the month and the year when the term will end. So try to identify, well, when will this term end, on what month and what year? And that is what you are going to place on the month, year, under or at the last line of your cover page. And then again, align this at the center of the page. Now, there are spaces in between these parts of your cover page. So how do we decide on what spaces would be appropriate for these? So you have three. This is what we call in-between spacing. All spaces in between the cover page should be equal using 3 to 5 spaces. You create a space by pressing the enter key. Now, this is subjective as deemed necessary by the author. Just make sure that all three spaces are equal. So if you're going to use 3, make sure you have 3 spaces on top, 3 in the middle, and 3 at the bottom. If that is not yet equal, then you can adjust. You can make it 2 on top, 2 in the middle, 2 at the bottom. Again, that is subjective. Just make sure that all 3 spaces are equal. So I think this is the last part of our discussion for today. And just make sure that if you were not able to get a thorough comprehension of what we have discussed, this video will be made available in my YouTube channel at Doc Ed Padama. Okay, so again, thank you for your time, my dear students. And I will be seeing you in our synchronous class online. And stay safe. God bless to each and every one of you.